Again, everybody, and welcome to Fractured Realities. As you can see, I have a co host today. This is my daughter, Isis, and I named her before the terrorist group was invented, so I'm not a Muslim terrorist of any sort, to be fair. But I've always wanted to do this for a while, and it took me a while to talk her into doing it because, she's a little camera shy, so let's be nice people. Anyway,
Roast me in the comments below.
they save that for me when they call me the Antichrist.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've always wanted to do a video about, the differences between the generations, how some generations think differently than others. Now, me personally, I know that there was a big generation gap between myself and my parents. My parents were baby boomers. I mean, my dad literally grew up, he was a greaser. My mom wore the poodle skirts and stuff like that.
Cat glasses.
Yeah, the cat glasses. Yeah, we have some of those pictures too. That's awesome. But there was always that they didn't really understand my generation, and I kind of wish that I would have had a chance, before my parents had passed, to really sit down and have the type of conversation and dialect, because that's what is the problem with a lot of social media in the world today, is the fact that people don't have dialogue, they don't talk. And so as a parent, especially being a single parent, I try to have that kind of dialogue and dialect with my daughters anytime I can. Now my older daughter's a little camera shy, she's hiding in the bedroom, she doesn't want to be on camera, so we'll respect that. But yeah, and I mean, the generational gap between me and my parents was pretty big. I mean, my parents were already in their 30s when I was born.
You were only 30 when I was born.
About 29. 29, yeah. Still a big generation gap. So literally, I mean, according to this seems to change every few years. Maybe it's a Mandela effect, or maybe it's just everybody tinkering with shit. But from what I understand, Generation X was 1960 to 1980. I was born prior to 1980, so technically I would be a Generation Xer. Then the people who were born from 1980 until 2000 are the millennials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I'm trying to keep up with this. That's just how I keep up with my current
And
affairs.
then after 2000 is Gen Z.
Gen Z. So since you were born in 2004, technically she would be a Gen Z. So she's two generations separated from my generation. Now with my generation, I mean, we had our problems. Don't get me wrong. There was definitely nothing perfect in our generation. Drugs just decimated our generation. Um, there was a lot of cliques, a lot of you had to be this way or that way. I never really followed that personally. I was always the fucking outcast no matter what group I was in. But we had our differences, things were different to where it seems like there's more of a pull with your generation, especially to bring things all in one world, open world, great. Everything would be wonderful, and I've spoken out many times against globalism and unified religion and unified government and big government, because I personally don't feel that it's a good thing for everybody to become one, because when you do that, that destroys everybody's chance for individuality, and that's just my opinion. You know, so well, like I said, I didn't have kids until later on in life. Met a girl, got married in 2002. My first daughter, Iris, was born in 2002. 2 years later, Isis was born, 2004. Things didn't work out between her and her mother. We went our separate ways. We were separated in 2005. We divorced in 2006. Now, there were other circumstances which I'm not going to talk about. I mean, my ex-wife, I will always care about her. I do care about her, but I'm not going to put personal information on blast here, but things happened and I ended up with full custody of both of my daughters. So I stuck it out in Cleveland. I worked several different jobs. I was an ice cream truck driver for a little while. I worked mainly private security and private policing, stuff like that. I did some bounty hunting. I did some car repos. Most of that when they were really young. They don't really remember when I did all that. Mostly security work. 'Cause I did that up until 2010.
I always just remember you being a cop, so.
Well, security officer. I wasn't technically a cop. Well, okay. All right. Guy with a badge and a gun.
Yeah.
The fun destroyer of everything. Yeah. Anyway, things in Cleveland just started to literally get out of hand. She was being, I had an older niece who would babysit her after both of my parents passed away. Because literally, I mean, in a big city, you have to work a lot of hours and make a certain amount of money to. Or I was never somebody who relied on handouts from anybody, not from the government, not from family, not from friends. I mean, I've had to borrow money, of course, but I've always paid it back. And I do not believe in government assistance because I don't want the government to have any kind of control over me. Because once you become part of that system, you're going to be in that system forever, and you're going to be liable to the rules of that system. So therefore, I tried to stay away from that. So yes, I worked a lot of hours. So when my kids were very young, and I kind of feel bad about this, but when my kids were very young, they went from babysitter to babysitter, and so at one point, a couple things happened. These were two main things, and it was just the violence and the crime in Cleveland got out of hand. Um, the house that my niece was renting, the man who lived in the apartment in the back had gotten to an argument with a guy next door. And while he was in the argument with them, he went back in the house and he pulled out a machete. That's the same time that the police showed up. And when the police showed up, they told him to drop the weapon. He didn't drop the weapon, so they tased him. Well, he took the machete blade and he cut the taser wires. And at that point, the police opened fire on him and ended his life right there in the front yard by the front door where my kids would sleep at night while I was working.
No more than 10 feet away.
No more than 10 feet away, literally. And I had to explain to my children who were
I was five.
five and 7 years old at the time why there's teddy bears and ribbons hanging from the thing, you know. Right. So, I mean, it was just a bad scene altogether. And then another thing, this happened probably a few months prior, but I would always make sure, I usually only had about 1 day a week off, but when I had a day off, I would make sure that we spent some family time. We'd like to go to the movies, and literally we had a movie theater down the street. Now, the neighborhood that I moved into was Old Brooklyn, which was a better neighborhood. It was lower middle class, I guess you could say. Literally, the street that I lived on, Vandalia Avenue, is right down the street from where Jim Carrey grew up. So a lot of the stuff that you see on the Drew or Drew Carey, the Drew Carey show is filmed in that neighborhood, and it's a nice neighborhood, but still, as more and more subsidized housing comes into areas and stuff like that, urban decay occurs, and even neighborhoods that are great. So we went over, and this wasn't even in Cleveland because literally once you crossed over a street, we went over to a place called Ridge Park Square where we were watching a movie. I don't recall exactly what movie.
Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. Okay. And when we were leaving the movie theater, I heard a loud argument occurring in the parking lot, and somebody opened fire with a weapon. And I had to have both her and her sister unbuckle themselves from their car seats and lay down flat on the fucking floor as I laid down in the driver's seat like this and sped out of the parking lot so that we didn't catch a stray bullet. And this is, like I said, this is just not, there's no way. I'm not going to raise my children in that environment. So in 2012, we moved to Montana. Montana's a little different. Very conservative, very Christian town. Some people can be very judgmental, but people can also be very nice. I mean, I don't have real bad reflection. I've had some bad luck since I've been here, as you know, but I don't consider it a bad place to be. It does get kind of, it can get kind of boring, and I can understand, especially for a kid your age, how there's just not a lot to do. You know what I mean? But I mean, what do you think of Montana in general, or like this part of the country as opposed to Cleveland, from what you remember?
It feels a lot safer,
Yeah,
but there is still like issues and stuff here. But overall, I think it's a much better place to grow up than Cleveland.
yeah. Well, no
It
matter,
is easy to get in trouble here because, like I said,
we know about that. Yeah, but yeah. Well, it's a smaller town, so it's a lot. Can't get away with anything. Everybody knows everything, and believe me, people know things about me that I don't even know. So it's one of those type of environments. It's good and it's bad, but yeah, this is true too. And it takes a long time for me to get to know people because they see the tattoos and they hear the accent and the long hair, if I have long hair at the time, or the beard or whatever, and they just automatically assume that I'm some jailbird, drug addict, scumbag without knowing me. But once they get to know me, they're generally decent people. So, I mean, it's, it can be a little judgmental here, but it's not too bad. But so yeah, we moved here. We now live in Big Timber, Montana. Probably maybe for another year, maybe two, and then I plan on leaving this state. I'm getting to the point in the age where I don't want to be in cold weather all the time. I've had a lot of injuries in my life, and I'm starting to get aches and pains, and it's just not. I don't want to be somewhere where it's literally cold 10 months of the year. So we'll be starting a new adventure soon. We'll keep you all posted about that. But yeah, so I mean, I think in general, I think it was a good idea for us to move to Montana. I mean, it did isolate us from a lot of the people that we knew back in Cleveland and that we associated with, which I imagine has always been kind of hard with you. For
especially
you.
The older niece that he mentioned was like a sister to me,
Yeah.
my sister, so.
Yeah.
And her older brother as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, literally, I've talked about it before, but my sister always had some issues with substance abuse. So my niece and my nephew were more like kids to me, or like little brother and sister, than they were a niece and a nephew because I looked out for them. So yeah, that was a pretty close family bond that we sort of lost when we moved out here.
Yeah.
But you got to do what's best for the long run, and so here we are. But so what we're going to talk about here, sorry about that long intro. I do tend to babble a bit. We're going to talk about the differences in our generations and some of the misconceptions that my generation has about you or that your generation has about us, which I'm sure there's quite a few. But the first thing I'd like to discuss, and this is, always going to be a hotbed topic, no matter who you discuss it with, and especially somebody who's a generation removed and your kid, because as you get older, you realize that your parents are a lot smarter than you think. But at this point in life, she probably thinks I'm a complete dumbass because I thought
it's a pretty
50-50. I'm only half a dumbass. Yeah, dumbass light. Yeah. But I have my moments. Yeah. I definitely have those. But anyway, but it's always politics. It seems like your generation is getting very much, and when I say your generation, I'm not speaking about you in general. You have a very good mind. You're a very intelligent girl. You do tend to see things from different points of view. to where a lot of your generation doesn't. So when I talk about your generation, I'm not speaking about you in general. I'm talking about that, but it seems like your generation is being pulled towards this globalist one world,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's equal, everybody's the same, and unfortunately, I mean, it's just it's not true, and this is my opinion. I believe in the equality of opportunity. I believe that every person, regardless of race, regardless of sex, should be able to have the same opportunities. Now, I don't believe that those people should be hired for those jobs just because they are what they are. And I think that's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't believe in equality of outcome, okay, because not everybody is going to be able to do it. Not everybody is created equal. I am not Michael Jordan. I do not have a 40-inch vertical. I cannot slam dunk a baseball. I can't hit a baseball 500 foot like Mark McGuire. So I'm not an athlete. And as a short man, I can't say, hey, I want to be an athlete. I'm being oppressed. You know what I mean? It's just that's not how the real world works. Some people have their pluses, some people have their differences. So when you try to say everybody's equal, it's just technically not true. I don't look like Brad Pitt. I don't look like George Clooney. I'm not going to be an actor. I'm not going to be on the front of GQ. But your generation seems to feel that everybody should be put on the same equal pedestal. And I believe that people should be put on pedestals or should be put on equal footing as far as opportunity goes. But I don't believe that they should be promoted to elevated to statures which they don't
I feel
deserve.
like everybody should start out on the same field, and the amount of work you put in should be what you get out of it. You know what I mean?
Well put. Well put. Yeah. Okay.
If you
Well,
don't put in 100% and you're not giving it all to what you're caring about, obviously you're not going to have the same opportunity as someone who's very committed and very, you know what I mean?
right. Like people talk about like the wealth gap, the 1% versus the 99%. These evil one percenters of the world who run the world and do everything. But okay, let's say half of those came in through inheritance. But okay, well, we'll say 90%, but there's still that tenth of the 1% who worked their ass off, came up, they were innovative and they were creative. So I don't personally feel that this whole wealth versus this, that the rich people have this much money, so they need to give it all to me. And that's unfortunately, I see a lot of that with your generation. I mean, do you see that attitude a lot with your peers?
Yeah, people are really entitled nowadays.
Exactly. And I mean, and that's just something that I don't understand. I mean, my parents were liberals. They were classic liberals. They were Democrats. They were Kennedy Democrats. But as a Kennedy Democrat, my dad was a union man. So my dad worked 12 hours a day up until 2 years before he passed away. He never dealt with handouts, never took a break. He worked, he hustled, he got done what he needed to get done. And he didn't believe that you should just hand somebody a living. You should just hand somebody a life. And like it says in um, like Confucius once stated, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So I think that we need to bring people up through skills and education. I don't think that we just need to make everybody equal across the bar because everybody can't keep up.
I feel like people are a lot more sheltered and protected nowadays from what things actually are like.
This is true too. Yeah, we're definitely going to be touching on that here in a minute. Your generation definitely has a bubble, so to speak. Yeah, and that'll get me to the next point to where, okay, when I was a kid, I mean, I didn't really get into the whole internet and the internet culture until I was literally in my 20s. Um, I mean, the internet existed, but it was 15 minutes of waiting to download a 5-second video clip. It was ridiculous. Back in the AOL days. Sorry, Puppers wants to say hi. This is Vlad, in case anybody doesn't remember. But we didn't have the social media. When we wanted to meet people, like literally, we went out and walked up to people and said, "Hey, how's it going? My name is this and this. This is what I'm into. This is what I do." We got into relationships with actually people that we actually met in real life. We formed friendships, we formed relationships, made enemies, but it was all based on face-to-face contact. And it seems like your generation is at a loss for that. It seems like everything is based around social media, Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and
You think it's so easy to completely fake who you are behind a screen.
This is true too, yeah.
So.
This is true too. Yeah, so everybody seems to have this alter ego, so to speak.
Everyone puts the best version of themselves out for the world to see, but you're not really seeing who the actual person is. You're not actually getting to know the person.
Right, to where, when you're around somebody in person all the time, the veil's lifted and you get to really see who people are. And I think that's why a lot of times, like with my parents' generation, my parents were married for 42 years when my mom passed, or when my dad passed, and my mom passed a couple months later. But now marriages seem to last, a hot minute. I've seen people online who are married 1 week and 2 weeks later they're filing for divorce. And it's like you have to have that social.
What happened?
Yeah, whoops. You have to have that social interaction to actually get to know people before you can form a relationship or a friendship with somebody. You don't know who somebody is based on that. But I think it's probably pretty scary and weird, like meeting somebody in real life after you've grown up, like literally in the age of communication. What's your opinion on this?
I don't think meeting people online is bad, but I definitely think you gotta be really careful with who you choose to associate yourself
Oh,
with.
well, yeah, and that's the truth for people that you know in real life too.
That too, but especially on the internet, it's so easy to be tricked into thinking something.
Right. And and there's some people that are just, for I know this is an overused term, but sociopathic, to where even when you meet them in real life, they seem like one thing and they're another. There's no that asshole detection spray that you can spray and form a green mist over somebody's head doesn't exist yet. So you really don't know who anybody is until you really get to
and
know.
I don't want to sound all like weird and like crazy and whatever, but when you're actually around somebody, you pick up on the kind of energy that they put out into the universe, but you can't do that behind the screen. You can't feel somebody's emotions and pick up on what they're feeling.
And to a certain extent, you could read people's auras somewhat through pictures. You can be somewhat empathic through the internet, but it's nowhere near the same thing.
You're feeling empathy for the person that you think they are, and maybe not who they actually are.
Right, exactly, and things can be easily,
miscommunicated.
Yeah, miscommunicated. So I think that, and that's probably a pretty scary thing. Once you go out there into the world after being sheltered for so long, living in this digital age,
That's why I was actually playing outside with kids.
Yeah, I actually made them go outside and play in the Right, and when my kids fell down and got a boo-boo, I didn't coddle them. I put a Band-Aid on their
and told me to get back up and rub some dirt on it and walk away.
Outside, and a lot of that's the way that I was raised. I wasn't raised to be emotional or to be coddled. So, a lot of times I probably seem cold to my daughters or to a lot of people around me, but that's just the way that I was raised. I wasn't raised to show outbursts of emotions or to show when I was hurt. It was just that wasn't how people, especially males, were raised in my generation. And that comes back from that, 1950s tough guy greaser attitude that my dad had, and probably his father before him, who was a coal miner. And these were hard men. These were badasses. These were hard working men with fucking hands of stone that would bitch smack the fucking spirit out of you if you defied them.
I also kind of remember that they had cocaine in their soda back then. So.
Well, no, I don't think it was that far back. I think that was like literally 1800. So, I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of cocaine soda going on, but yeah, it was just, from what I understand, a lot of hard drinking. I mean, these guys could put away some alcohol, and literally, I mean, even when I was a drinker, I haven't touched a drop of alcohol in over 3 years,
Oh, I
or
would
close to
always
3 years.
remember Grandpa sitting in the kitchen with his flask and his book, like.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
like, that's always where he was.
He would just have a couple small glasses of whiskey and wash it down with beer, and that was okay. If I tried to do that, I would be throwing up, running down the street naked, getting tased by police. I mean, I never had an alcohol tolerance like that.
Yeah.
Drugs were a different story, but alcohol, I was never the hardcore drinking type. But and that's another thing that's pretty scary about your generation too, is how quick, and this is the fault of my generation. We should own up to this. A lot of us did not want to be parents, and I'm speaking about my generation in general, not me.
Mm-hmm.
Did not want to be parents. We didn't want to deal with it. Our kids said, no, okay, well, we can't whip them. That's illegal. That's bad. That's abuse. But we'll take them to a doctor, and this doctor will give them this happy little pill,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll give it to them, and they'll settle down. And I will not. I refuse to drug my kids. Like, literally, I had to be threatened by the Cleveland Public Schools in order to have my kids vaccinated. Okay, I'm not necessarily an anti-vaxxer, but I really wasn't too comfortable with the fact that they wanted 14 shots for each of my daughters and could not explain to me what fucking one of them was or what was in them. That always bothered me. I'm just naturally paranoid. Like, we went to a restaurant today, and I don't sit with my back to doors. I just, yeah, that's just how I am, I guess. But I mean, and you probably see that, and don't name anybody by name, please. But with a lot of your friends who are just medicated.
Probably 2/3 of my school is on some sort of medication that they have to take.
And that's crazy. I mean, there were always people who had issues and who had ADHD, but I guess now that corporal punishment is out, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answers to this dilemma, but I truly do not believe
I
that.
feel like some kids do actually need it, but not nearly as many. I feel like it's just an easy way out.
Well, yeah. I mean,
rather than actually like taking the time to sit down and like figure out what's going on with your kid, you're just gonna dope them up and send them out.
Right. I mean, there's always going to be crazy ones, and there were plenty of those when I went to school too. I mean, there was one kid. I'm not, like I said, I don't mention names on here, but he would tell us stories about ninja crawling across telephone poles, and I just thought he was off the wall. I just thought, hey, this kid's weird. Yeah, he's a bullshit or whatever. But I never treated him badly because of it. I just kind of blew him off. But then I find out 2 years after we graduated from high school, he got into an argument with his landlord. He cut his landlord's throat, and him and one of his friends committed sexual acts on the landlord, thinking that the landlord was dead when he actually wasn't. The guy survived the attack, and it was just like, whoa. And I could give many examples of these crazy type of people, especially in Cleveland. Yeah, Cleveland's just a very, very special place. Very, very special. But so yeah, there were always those kids, but nowhere near the numbers that they have today. And I see kids that don't seem like bad kids or don't seem like they're even hyperactive, but they put them on these drugs. And I understand in some circumstances that's needed, but not as widespread as it is today. So I mean, it's scary, and a lot of these kids grow up to be methamphetamine addicts.
Well, because their ADD meds or
It's
like Adderall.
It's meth.
It's amphetamine.
It's meth, and I don't advocate this in any way, but when we were younger, I didn't realize, I didn't know about this until later on. One of my friends hit me to it. They would take and chop up the Adderalls and snort them, and it was like doing cocaine. It's a stimulant, and they get used to that stimulant. And once that stimulant goes away, when they get off the meds, when they get older, that's when they become meth addicts. And all the meth is in every single area. I mean, meth is such an epidemic. This was just some shit that rich, weird raver kids did when
Because
I was growing up.
it has the opposite effect on kids as it does on adults. With kids, it kind of just mellows them out. But with adults, like they get like all hyped up, like you said, it's like being on cocaine.
Yeah. No, like I said, it's a scary world that you grow up in. You know, it really is.
I mean, I had a best friend for what, 4 or 5 years that had to take multiple of those pills that we're talking about every single day. So,
Yeah.
and I had to watch her take them. So.
It's scary. And another scary thing too, and this is something that I feel horrible about for your generation, is all the mass shootings, all the fucking wars. I mean, in your lifetime and your sister's lifetime, and many of the kids who are already in their 20s, their entire lives, we've been at war. There's been terrorism going on. There's school shootings. There's always something. So, I mean, it's hard to feel secure anymore anywhere.
Especially at school.
Yeah.
Like there's, plus like in our school we have I know it's really a small town, it's really nice, but we don't really have a lot of security. So if someone were to come and do something, we'd be fucked, for lack of a better term.
Which, you know, maybe that's my natural paranoia, but that's definitely something that I've been concerned about, which is a big part of the reason that I've decided that after this year, you and your sister are going to be
And there are only 2 exits out of our school.
Right. And it's just, I just have a very icky feeling about it, to say the least. So yeah, I mean, that's a real sad thing. I mean, your generation just doesn't have that blanket of security. I mean, we might have been dumb, we might have been naive, walking around thinking that nothing can hurt us, nothing's going to be bad, nothing's ever going to
I feel
destroy
like that would be
our
better than
planet.
being afraid constantly.
Right, and it was. I mean, we actually had times of peace. I grew up in the 80s. I mean, yeah, there were wars, there were conflicts, there were bad things that happened, but not like today. It wasn't
Directly
all the
affect you
time.
in the way it does
Right.
nowadays, because we're always hearing about it because of social media and stuff like that. It's
Exactly.
always being blasted.
Yeah, it's always piped into you, and it's always worst case scenario. And now, instead of the media reporting things from a biased point of view, it's always in a political agenda or a political, and it's a lot of it's fear tactics. So yeah, it's definitely got to be scary, you know. Exactly, exactly. And if you keep people fighting with each other, so you tell people that we're all equal and that we're the same, but these people are more evil than these people. These people have been oppressed more than those people. The white males are at the bottom of the oppression ring, where, you know, the cross-gender, black, Muslim, female, gay, lesbian, cultural binary, or whatever the hell they call it these days, are at the top, and it's not the case. I mean, there's oppression that happens for every race. There's oppression that happens for every color, and a lot of times I think that your generation, especially growing up as a Caucasian, and you're just as pale as I am. Yeah. You know, even though we might not be 100% honky, we look the part anyway. So we're automatically assumed that we're the evil elite. You know, especially myself. And I mean, can you see that as a problem with your generation, with the whole white shaming, where it's almost as if people tell you don't have a culture?
That's absolutely.
Yeah.
In my opinion, every group of people that there is on the planet has a certain different thing about them. That is culture. Culture isn't a color. Culture is like the way you think, the way you live, the way the certain people around you live. And India has a completely different culture than England does, but they both still have things about them that make them special.
And in Europe, especially, which were mostly European descendants, There's, I believe, 62 different languages. There's several
Mm-hmm.
different cultures. There's literally every eye color, every skin shade, every hair color that there is available. And to say that the white shaming and to say that your culture is bad and that and another thing is the whole cultural appropriation thing. How you can't dress like Pocahontas, but if a black girl wants to dress up like a Viking, that's perfectly okay.
Or you can't wear like Afro wigs or anything like that
Well, yeah,
anymore. Because I've seen people online get attacked and called racist because they wore like
yeah, but then
a clown wig.
they come out with movies like The Black Klansman and white chicks. Well, it was a serious movie before memes were around. It was an actual movie. The Wayans brothers starred in it, and where they dressed up as white women and portrayed themselves as white females, and it literally every cliche that you could think of for white people and white women and white men was involved, and nobody screamed racism or foul. And like I said, I'm an advocate of free speech. If people want to say those things, that's fine. You say what you want to say. You don't have to like me, but I'm not going to accept my demise or be self-shamed based on your opinion. And do you feel that that's, I mean, with what you're being taught in school, is that sort of what you're being programmed into? Do you think that,
Oh
or
yeah,
am I
especially with
wrong?
history.
Mhm.
History's been, I feel like, very altered, and
Yeah,
our
much so.
history that we're learning in school nowadays is very pushed in a certain direction, if
Mhm.
that kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
very, I don't know, I don't want to say liberal, but kind of it's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, I do feel like things are getting a lot more
Well,
cutthroat for people of our color.
yeah, of our creed.
Yeah.
Well, okay, like for instance, and this was going on. This isn't something that's new to your generation. This went on in my generation too. I mean, I went to schools that were predominantly black, and literally during Black History Month, they sat me down in a room with about 30 other children. There were two Hispanics. I was the only white kid in the class, and they showed us roots. Which okay, and that's fine. But then after the class, that's when the screaming started, the finger pointing, and obviously at the time, blonde hair and blue eyes, I was the one being pointed out as the oppressor, and I'm, well, what the fuck? I wasn't
You
born
were just a
back
little
then.
chubby white kid.
Yeah,
You weren't
yeah.
trying to hurt nobody.
No, absolutely not. I just wanted to be left alone. I wanted to get home without getting beat up and get home safe. I didn't want to oppress anybody. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to live my life and be left the hell alone, which you really can't do in an urban environment. You got a big target painted on you if you're pale skinned, and I hate to say that. It's not a race thing. It's the truth. It's the truth that I grew up with.
That's another thing about living in Montana is like, I'm not saying that like I hate people colored or whatever, but there are a lot of white people here. It's like 99% white.
Mhm.
So I don't really feel like there's a lot of like judgment in that area kind of going on.
That's true, and it seems like, and this is one thing that I will say for this town too. Even though it's majority of white, there are people here who are of Samoan descent. There are
Hmm. There's a
Hispanics
lot of
here,
Native
a lot
Americans.
of Native Americans, a few blacks, and a few people of mulatto mixed heritage, and I don't see them being treated any differently.
Hmm.
I don't see them being
Well, at least not to their face.
right,
People are very two-faced here. They'll say one thing about you to your
right,
face and then turn around and say something completely
right. But I mean, me personally, I mean, I'm just saying from what I've seen and from what I've interacted with, I don't see them being mistreated. I don't
different.
see them being given less opportunities, not necessarily more opportunities. I don't think they're catered to like they are in a more liberal environment, like they would be back in Ohio. But They're not, and that's the whole thing. I mean, when you grow up as the minority in a group of so-called minorities, it's okay for them to lash out at you because of your color, but it's not okay for you to even be proud of who or what you are, and that's just
Mhm.
really scary, and that's and I'm glad that you can kind of think through and see things and make your own opinion on things based on what you see and what you feel,
Yeah.
you know. So, and I mean that's what a lot of what you deal with is propaganda. It's trying to the schools, the media, pop culture are all trying to drive you into this direction where we have this no race, no economic differences, no religious differences. Everybody's the same, but that's sheepish. That doesn't really reflect reality. That doesn't reflect the diversity of reality, the diversity of America, or the diversity of people. And I mean, do you see this being pushed as an agenda,
Yeah.
or am I just a crazy conspiracy theorist who thinks this? Or I mean,
No, every time I wake up in the morning and I check my phone, I see some sort of political against Trump or for Hillary or against Hillary or whatever. Well, not anymore, but
yeah,
I'm just using that as an example.
hmm
Or I'll turn on Facebook or something and I'll see a news ad for CNN,
right.
and not throwing any shade at CNN, but they are
And,
very
and don't
they have a bias.
don't they make you watch CNN at
Yeah,
school?
in history.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't see Fox or NBC or
No,
any
it's
of the
only
other
CNN.
ones,
That's
or
the only approved.
RN or
No,
Al
since
Jazeera or any of the other news sources. It's
we
only
don't.
CNN.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
only use
And what a lot of it is too is the teachers who are from my generation or even the baby boomer generation were indoctrinated in college into this liberal socialist schism, this point of view that is unbendable, unwaverable, and then they go and they teach our children, which is just the reason that America has such a poor school system now because
CNN.
you're only being taught from one point of view, and it was gearing in that direction, but there were some differences. I mean, there were some of the old school teachers,
Yeah.
who were happy to, stand up in front of the American flag, and some of them did prayers in school. And I'm not a religious person, but I'm not gonna fucking shit cornflakes because somebody makes you say the Pledge of Allegiance or because they say a prayer before school. I don't see any harm in it.
Does
Um,
it really have any effect?
no, it doesn't. It's not going to change your day. How dare you try to give my children morals? Damn you! I mean, I don't have a problem with religion as far as that context goes.
I just don't feel like religion should be pushed on kids.
No, I don't.
Whether
I
it's
don't either.
Christianity, Muslim, fucking Buddhism, I don't think Christianity should be, or not Christianity, religion should be in school.
No,
No, I don't feel like it shouldn't be there. I just don't feel like it should be taught.
I think that no, I don't.
Unless you're going to a Catholic school or
Right.
somewhere
If
where
you're
that's
going to a
supposed to be.
seminary school, that is what they teach. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that's what
I'm
you
talking
go there
about
for.
public.
Yeah,
Like,
and I agree with that. It should not be taught. It should not be pushed. And if people want to have their little Muslim prayer groups in school or Christian prayer
yeah.
groups in school or the pagan Wiccan New Life Society or whatever they want, that's fine.
I
Just as
see
long as
people
they,
praying in front of school every morning. And I
yeah,
don't say anything.
yeah,
I'm not personally a Christian, but I'm not going to shit on other people who are just because I don't share the same views as you.
right. And I think that's a lot of the
I'm not going
problem
to
with,
say you can't do that because I don't agree with it.
and that's what I think a lot of the people in your generation, it's the all in generation. If you're an atheist, you have to be all into the atheist point of view. If you're a Christian,
Yeah.
you have to be all into the Christian point of view. If you're Muslim, you have to wear a hijab and throw gay people off roofs.
People just love to put labels on things because they don't understand the idea of people.
Right.
Under.
And they don't understand even within every culture and every subculture, there's differences. Every person is different. Every person is unique. And when you try to stick everybody in a box and make everybody equal. Nobody's unique. Nobody's important.
And
Nobody's
especially
different.
when you like slap a label on somebody without them doing it by themselves, it kind of makes them want to lash out and be like, no, this isn't what I am. And then that's how arguments and conflict and stuff starts. Like, because if you label somebody as a racist and they're not racist, obviously they're going to get upset. Like,
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, if you say that, you don't support illegal immigration, which I don't. I support legal immigration 100% because we're all immigrants.
yeah,
I do not support illegal immigration because if my fucking ancestors, the Irish ones that came over here in chains, or the Native Americans who are already here, or the Germans or Swedes who came over, or the other Irish or Dutch, who came to this country legally, learn the language, learn the culture. And I don't think that you should embark other people's cultures on you. You can't do that. I mean, that
no,
is literally destroying the fabric of society. It's trying to make everything evil, but at the same time, it's dumbing everything down. There's no individuality. I don't like that, and that's part of what I fear for your generation. You know
a
what I
lot of
mean?
us really do have kind of mob mentality of like, if this person's bad, like completely just go all in.
Right, right, and you don't know what that person's been through.
Exactly. That's why
That person says something or does something ignorant online. You don't know if that person's been abused at home. You don't
exactly.
know if that person's been sexually abused. You don't know if that person has mental illness or that person has been bullied
Yeah. And
themselves
it's
to where
cheesy, but it's the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated.
oh, exactly. And I mean
Like,
that, and
because
then
I was always like raised and grown up believing that like you never know what somebody else is going through. So always be the bigger person in a situation.
right.
Don't lash out at somebody just because they're giving you a bad time.
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, all of us have
We all
we all have certain things that we're judgmental about.
yeah.
Like, for me, people who abuse animals, people who abuse children,
Yeah.
fucking pedophiles especially, um, shit like that. That's definitely I'm definitely prejudiced against those sorts
Yeah.
of people, and the sort of people who are religiously intolerant who scream and tell you you're going to go to hell or that you're an infidel
Yeah.
or that you're not one of God's chosen people. Um, that's bullshit. Those I don't care for that. That's the aspect of religion that has caused more wars and death throughout mankind
Exactly.
than anything else, and it's nonsense. That needs to stop. Religions like everything else need to grow with the times, and if they can't, then they need to fucking go away. And you cannot bring your religion from some other part of the world that has different values and different morals and different thoughts and impede those beliefs on people of other cultures. And that's a big part of the reason that I am against immigration. I don't want forced um, Sharia law. I don't want, it's no, we don't have a place for that here. But that's another topic. Sorry, I'm veering off. I do that sometimes. So this is just kind of something that can be a little fun, maybe a little fun, maybe a little controversial. But I told my daughter to write down a few things that she doesn't like about my generation, or a few things that bother her about my generation. And like I said, once again, these are not ultimatums. This isn't about me personally, about her personally, about all Gen Xers or all millennials or all Gen Zs. This is just general interpretation. Um, I'll start off. I think I got a couple more on here than you got. So the one thing that really bothers me, and this is the number one thing about your generation, and we've already kind of discussed this a little bit, so we don't have to spend too much time on this, is the whole socialist values, to where you are entitled to free Medicare, you are entitled to free education, you are entitled to this, you are entitled to that. And the way I grew up, you're not entitled to anything. You pay for what you get. When you pay for it, you get better services. So, and I mean, that's one of the serious problems that I have with your generation is the whole gimme, gimme, gimme. I'm entitled, the entitlement, and the socialism. How they openly embrace idiots like, and yeah, I try not to be negative or talk about politics, but come on, Bernie Sanders. I mean, ridiculous. There's no way unless you want a $60 trillion debt that your great grandchildren, and I don't believe in fucking over excuse my French, but fucking over future generations to get free shit now. That's not cool. I don't want your great grandkids to be paying for my stupid ass mistakes because I wanted free healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and anybody who knows, and if you
Plus,
don't,
even if we did get the free healthcare and stuff, there's no way it would be very good.
no, I wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
Because like Canada has free healthcare and stuff, but it's shit. Like.
Oh no, in Great Britain, and a lot of the European countries, and especially with them allowing mass immigration into these countries, their systems are just so overwhelmed to where you're just getting a very substandard product, and it doesn't work. Venezuela, enough said.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Then you hit me with something. What don't you like about my generation? What bothers you about my generation?
Well, we already kind of went over most of the things on my list, but one thing that I didn't really mention is a lot of you are very cheap. There's nothing wrong with that. You're pretty good with most things, but one thing that always annoyed me is, well, you always got the worst toilet paper possible. Like we've had money, but you always get like the $1 stuff.
Well, that's because you guys use so much of it. I fully believe that when I'm not here, that you guys slather peanut butter on it and eat it as a snack.
We don't even use it.
Well, it seems like maybe it's a girl thing because you got more shit to wipe. But you know, hey, if I could save a few dollars, if I could save a few dollars and get us some, you know, a better TV or a better video game.
We have TVs. We have all these things. We have money. We can buy toilet paper.
Yeah, but there might be something good that we want in the future. And if I could save a couple dollars by buying McScratchies, you know, like it says right there on the label, McScratchies. It'll ripe you. It's good. It works. It works. You know, I don't know, man. I'll
be in charge of the buying that stuff.
No. Maybe I'll splurge on some better toilet paper like once in a while.
When?
It's sometime in the future. All right, moving on. Okay. Another thing that kind of bugs me about your generation, and I do this too. There's times when I zone the fuck out on my phone and sit there and keep up on social media for maybe an hour at a time. But it seems like your generation cannot be away from their phones. Like, you don't know how many people I see coming into the store when I'm working who are in absolute fucking panic mode because they don't have a charger for their phone. So we have the new iPhone charger? Like they're going through heroin fucking with the phone. Like they're gonna fucking, you know, start shaking and foaming at the fucking mouth any minute if they can't have a 10% charge on their damn phone. And I see that. I mean, I'll see people in restaurants, movie theaters, just. I
feel like it's disrespectful in social situations, but like if you're just like relaxing on your phone, I don't see a problem with it. It's like you do the same thing. You're on your phone quite a bit.
Not as much as you.
Not as much as me, obviously, but like. I have other.
At this very moment, she has her phone in her hand and has through the entire video. Just for the record.
It's not on though.
Okay.
I'm not doing anything with it.
Just stating the facts, buddy. Okay. You got something there?
Well, we already kind of talked about it. I feel like your generation is very like stuck in the mindset of like when you grew up. Because I feel like a lot of times when I'm getting in trouble for something, you're gonna use an example of like, oh, I grew up like this, so I'm gonna make you grow up like this. You do that quite a bit.
Okay, fair enough assessment, but that's part of being a parent is the fact that you have to learn from my very bad and very stupid fucking mistakes in past. Yeah. And for that matter, I mean, and I don't mean any disrespect for my parents, but my parents had a very different approach to discipline. Okay. They would, we had physical discipline. I'd get a belt, get a switch, and that. I don't do that with you guys, but yes, I do raise my voice. I do that, and I do, probably get a little out of hand when I do go into my rants and raves
Yeah.
sometimes, but it could be worse. I mean, that's my only point.
Well, I mean, it could always be worse.
When I was a kid, we literally took an ass whooping, you know, or an ass beating.
You've gotten a few ass beatings. Not just from you, though. From you,
No,
not that much. But
you've got
from other people, yeah. I'm not going to name names.
well, you've gotten spanked a time or two when you were a lot younger, but I've never like physically, abused
Well,
you.
no, you never like punched me in the face.
Not yet, no. But yeah, I mean, so maybe I am a little harsher and a little more strict than I need to be,
Yeah.
but that comes from a point of protectiveness because I can remember at the point where my parents were older and they started to kind of slip off a little bit,
Mhm.
where they were a lot stricter with my older siblings and with me. When by the time I was your age, I was out running the streets doing all kinds of shit, and I don't want to see that happen. So it comes from a place of love, believe it or not. It's just might seem kind of judgmental and it might seem kind of harsh, but it's my protectiveness. That's the wolf daddy. Oh, that doesn't sound good, but okay, you know what I mean.
Don't say that again.
Yeah, wolf
please.
daddy. I will never say wolf daddy again. All right, fair enough. Okay. Now, and here's one thing that we do argue quite a bit about is today's music, and this was the same argument that I had with my parents. I mean, my parents thought fucking Metallica and Slayer and Ozzy were the end of the world. They thought the Beastie Boys were just the most ridiculous, stupid shit they've ever heard. And probably the same way that I feel about people like Extension and Post Malone and
You
Eminem.
realize that's not the only stuff that I listen to.
No,
That's just the
no,
stuff you get mad about.
right. That's well, when I got to wake up to the Post Malone blasting
I
it,
don't even listen to Post
okay,
Malone.
well, in the past, when you were listening to Post Malone, and I had to wake up to hearing Post Malone blasting, an hour after I finally fell asleep, that triggered something in me.
Would you rather have me listen to stuff about cannibalism?
Cannibal Corpse was pretty dope, though. I
I
don't know.
got bitches and money, you got cannibalism and death. And genocide.
All right, all right. I'll call a parlay on that one, I guess. But okay, here's the main thing that I just cannot understand about your generation. And this is in all seriousness, and this is 100% serious. Is something that confuses me is the emotional vulnerability of your generation. How everything easily triggered becomes the end of the world, becomes super depressing. I don't get it. I mean, maybe it was because we were raised by, I don't want to say harder people, but more,
Suck it up. Right.
yeah, more suck it up types.
Rub a little dirt on it and walk away.
Right. And maybe to a certain extent I'm like that. So I don't understand, emotional vulnerability from your generation, how so many people are so depressed all the time and so mad at the world and so angry when, it doesn't seem like real life problems. I mean, yeah, and this is just an example, but Becky said my shirt's ugly. Fuck that thought. you know, I see shit. I'm like, oh my god, you're losing your shit about that. I'm like, literally when I was growing up, I would see my friends fucking. I seen several of my friends die in front of me, literally shot to death and bleeding out in the middle of the street. And 2 hours later, I was playing Super Mario Brothers, and it seemed like I could just process emotions, or maybe we don't. Maybe we don't. Maybe fucking by the time I turn 50, my fucking head's gonna explode. I don't know.
if it hasn't already.
And maybe that is a positive thing. In retrospect, that you get it out and you express it and you say how you feel, because a lot of times when I was growing up, it was just,
I do
you know,
definitely see that with a lot of people my age, but I feel like growing up with a dad like you, I kind of learned to like just deal with it. Like,
yeah. Well,
like there's, because I always know that there's people out there that are gonna have it a million times worse.
right, right. And the analogy that my dad would always use with me is he's like, you know what? There's some kid your age in Kenya right now who's getting chased down the street by a fucking tiger. He doesn't have any shoes and he's trying to go to school with no water in the school. And he's going to get ate by that goddamn tiger. And you're worried because you can't get the new Mike Tyson's Punch Out for Nintendo. And I'm like, man,
Sorry.
I'm a sad, sorry little bitch. Sorry, Dad. You know, and I guess to a certain, and I try not to do that or go to those extremes, but I guess that's just part of how I was raised. So I mean,
Yeah, I do definitely see like with you a lot. You kind of take a lot of the stuff like from when you were growing up and use that with us.
genuflect on you, yeah, and I try not to do that, but
It's
you know,
it's not really that big a deal, honestly.
yeah.
It could be so much worse, honestly.
Well, this is true. I could be a, you know, meth head who goes to church on the weekends and preaches the gospel to you with a cigarette in one
I
hand,
would have ran away.
cigarette in one hand and a whiskey glass in the other one.
Popping Xanax.
Yeah, playing Barstool Jesus, you know, as I yeah. So you know, it can be worse, but and one thing I will say, your generation positives, you seem to say what you feel and what you like, even though I disagree wholeheartedly with a lot of it, what you guys feel. And I think that you emotionally go overboard, but you're a more expressive generation. So that's good. You're a generation that has access to vast knowledge. And no, I'm not talking about Google. I'm not talking about Snoops and all the bullshit propaganda. I'm talking about books. I'm talking about you could download a book on your phone that I would have had to fricking become a fifth degree Mason just to have access to in a fricking stone library locked away. You have access to everything, and it's a good time for that. It's
Technology is the way of the future.
I mean it is, and I do embrace it. I mean, obviously, I'm sitting here talking on YouTube, which YouTube's not a new thing, but you know, for us old bastards,
It's only been around for like 10 years.
yeah,
10, well, 15 now.
yeah, but you know, it's a new thing to me.
Yeah.
Look, I can see my face on the camera.
Wow.
Holy hell, what's next? We're gonna have planes that fly by remote. What? Why was I not informed? Damn. See, you learn something new every day. I got freaking, I got my Google right here, dog. Yeah.
Well, that and idiots.
Yeah, true that. But anyway, like I said, for all the Gen Xers like myself who are confused looking at the strange world that we live in, all the millennials who are, you know, losing their mind and growing their armpit hair and having a hard time adjusting to this moderately conservative government that we have. I don't even consider it a full conservative.
I feel like
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's Republican or Democrat.
I think Donald Trump's very moderate. I don't think
very
he's.
like in the middle.
Yeah, I don't feel that he's a hardcore conservative. I mean, he's, you know, actually a little left of what Reagan was, who was a moderate, but you know, he's a Nazi according to anybody who's liberal at all, which is just I don't know. like I said, I have some liberal views and I have some conservative views. I don't buy into either one, but to all you millennials who are, putting masks on over your face and trying to punch Nazis, or all you Christians who are condemning everybody to hell. Yeah, you millennials are a very, very, very outspoken generation.
Not
I
just the millennials.
Well, yeah, yeah, my generation was the same, but we did our shit through music. Okay, you
Yeah.
had bands like Rage Against the Machine, you had Cypress Hill, you had Public Enemy, you had Metallica and Slayer. We rebelled against the system through the arts, through music, through expression.
Yeah.
We didn't go and throw rocks at cops or bust out glass windows, and that's sort of the difference between
Well, maybe you
millennials.
didn't, but there were definitely people that did.
Well, yeah, well, maybe I threw a couple rocks through windows
Yeah.
a time or
I feel like
two.
this is a really confusing time for people around me and my sister's age because we're not old enough to be considered like 90s kids, but we're not old enough to be considered like the Jake Paul fidget spinner, like ADD, like little kids nowadays. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah,
like I see like posts and stuff from like this is supposedly just from the 90s, but I remember growing up with the exact same stuff. Like, and I grew up
right.
in the mid to late 2000s,
And
so
and and even when I was growing up, a lot of what was going on was reprocessed from other generations,
mhm.
and it's the same thing. And I mean, a lot of it's like throwbacks. And I mean, there were political movements when I was a kid.
Well, at least you weren't part of the people
No,
that tried to lift the Pentagon.
I didn't. I didn't try to curse Donald Trump either with the mass cursing ceremony or whatever, mass binding ritual. Or, and I've talked about that before. About half those people are either dead or have illnesses now, because when you put negative energy out, which is what a curse or a binding spell is. You put negative energy out, negative intention out of people who don't physically harm you or cause you hardship just because you don't like what they think. That's going to bounce back on you, and those people are suffering. And you can look that up and verify that if you want to. Told you here first. But anyway, like I said, your generation has a lot of promise. And in 10, 15 years from now, when I get lung cancer and I drop dead, your generation is going to assume the mantle, and you're going to have to control this shit. And I'm sure at that time there's going to be some kind of crazy shit you don't understand.
And I'm sure if I have kids someday, I'm gonna think a lot of the same ways that you do. Like, what is this music technology? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'll
Because
probably.
times are changing so quickly that it's hard to keep adapting
Yeah,
to everything.
I mean, are we at the point in history, the crux, where there can't be anything new or inventive
I
anymore? I
don't
don't
think
know.
so.
Maybe
I
everything's
don't
been
think so.
done, but I don't think we're used up. I mean, there's going to be
There's
some.
so much that we haven't
I mean, I'm sure
discovered yet.
your kids are going to be watching videos of some guy, farting frickin' Two Live Crew songs out of his anus when they're of age. And you'll look at that and say, "Why are you watching?" And they'll be like, "You don't understand. This is musical expression." You know, shit always changes. It always adapts, and I guess we have to. But I want to thank you very much for being on my channel. Hopefully you can do another discussion again. This one's running a little long. I'm at an hour and 10 minutes already, so I'm gonna cut her off. But like I
Make sure
said,
to smash that dislike button.
yeah,
Leave us a
yeah,
hit comment below.
yeah, yeah. Or if not, she always makes sure I get my
If you look back
proper.
on all those old videos, I leave hate comments on all
Yeah, keeping dad online, helping me destroy the inner ego, so to speak. Anyway, thank you very much for being on my channel. I love you. I appreciate it. Hopefully we could do this again sometime, and we'll maybe shoot.
Make a part two of this,
Hey, hey, yeah, hey, it's possible. Hey, hit me up with that. Like I
watch
said,
this video go viral.
uh,
Like,
that's all right. I've been there before. I can be the bad guy if I have to be. I'll be the best bad guy ever. Anyway, Yeah, I just always wanted to fucking say that in some kind of context. So yeah, I know, I know, I know. But anyway, thank you very much. Leave your comments if anybody. Like I said, I debated a Gen Zer here. If any Christians, Muslims, atheists, anybody wants to have a debate with me, we'll Skype it up and we'll talk it out. I am not an echo chamber. I don't have to have only people who believe what I believe. It would probably be a scary world if that was the case anyway. But but yeah, if you want to debate or you want to be part of the channel and join the discussion, let me know. I have no problem doing collabs. I'd love to hear from you and let me know what you think in the comments. Hate me, love me, whatever. I'm not going away though. Bye bye. Have a good one, people. Love you all. Take care.